So I guess I haven't done this in a while. But, well, it's not like anyone listens to me anyways, so kind of whatever. But I did not realize the extent to which Jordan Peterson was back as cultural influence, because I kind of been through the ringer myself. Again, well, very different ringer from him in most respects, but not completely different because, of course, uh, you know, he went through pretty extreme benzodiazepine withdrawal, and I'm familiar with the extent to which withdrawal from sedatives can cause some pretty nasty symptoms, including some psychosis, which is one of the reasons I ain't been on here in a while. But yeah, the fellow is back in a strong way. Recently managed to sit through a few things that he said, and it's not good. He's gone pretty hardcore off right. um, he's yeah. Um, it's just particularly ironic, right? Because he's always had this thing about, like, set your house in order before you go and criticize the world. And then it turns out that his house is extremely far from in order, and he has this whole story, right, about how, like, oh, he was told these were fine to take, and it's like, you have a PhD in psychology, you had a clinical practice, and you're telling me you don't know what benzos do? Come on, man, come on. Like, you would have to just there's no way. It's just, I mean, he started taking benzos and he got addicted to them. It happens. You know, we all mess up and, end up in situations like that. I've been in situations like that many times. But it's like, you want to tell me, like, oh, he, no, 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 no. He was taking drugs because they reduced his anxiety and made it so that he could just experience a more pleasant mental state. And yet he was very vocally criticizing basically the entire world, or any part of the world that doesn't happen to exactly align with his echo chamber of views. And it's just I thought that he kind of had his rise and fall there and was not so culturally relevant anymore, but no, he's definitely back. uh, and he he's saying not great things. Like, I sat through his conservative manifesto, which was absolutely obnoxious, and I do not recommend to anyone. Um, Although it is important to understand what people are saying, because you frequently hear so and so said such and such, and then you never get to hear, okay, like, that's obviously going to be a bit of quote mining. What did they actually say? So, it is better to sit through listening to what he actually said, but it's not particularly pleasant and it's not particularly informative, although it is informative of what he actually has to say, and what he has to say is actually worse than what I was expecting. Like, I thought we were at a place where we all agreed that the degree of wealth inequality in the world was bad. We just disagreed about what to do about it. Because, hey, maybe the government isn't necessarily always the best tool for dealing with it. I think it's, if anything, an underutilized tool at the moment. People on the sort of right, maybe think it's an overutilized tool, but we just agreed that, there's too many, millionaires and billionaires, and, people that make it, medium, or people that are basically in the 80th percentile or lower are really struggling, or honestly the entire bottom 99% is kind of struggling. But the majority of people are not in a good situation. And then Jordan Peterson straight up he has this insane argument, right, where he's like, oh, the majority of the water or in the world, flows through just a handful of rivers, which is, one, just because you can find an analogy with a natural system doesn't make it make any sense. I always like to point out, because he had his stupid lobster thing, is like, I live on the Pacific Ocean, where actually the only lobsters we have, or the only thing that are they're called spiny lobsters. They actually don't have claws, and they're more closely related to crabs than to East Coast lobsters. But nevertheless, his whole argument about, oh, even lobsters fight for dominance with their claws. Well, not the lobsters here; they don't have claws, uh, and So, it's kind of insane. And it's like, well, actually, the majority of the world's water is in the ocean, which is of definitely varying depth, but it doesn't vary that much. And the lion's share of the water is in ocean with intermediate depth. So, it's like, okay, I can find any I can always find a natural system that obeys a different sort of distribution. One you're looking for is like, you know, uh, he had a couple of other examples I can't remember because they were also, well, they were stupid because they made no sense, and it's like he was basically just justifying wealth inequality. It's like, I mean, the fundamental problem is that massively rich people take that massive amount of money and power and they use it to make bad decisions. If they were making A plus decisions all the time, it wouldn't be such a terrible problem. But they're making pretty bad decisions that are, amongst other things, exacerbating climate change. Although that's far from the only problem. And yeah, and then of course we always be like, well, if they're making such bad decisions, how do they stay rich? It's like, because they know how to stay rich. They don't know how to do other things, because what makes you richer? Knowing how to be a responsible individual in terms of taking care of the human population and the world we live on, or knowing how to get rich. Probably knowing how to get rich is how you get rich, not knowing how to be responsible once you are rich. So it's really not surprising that the situation actually has been getting worse. Anyways, I just thought that it was particularly awful that he had this disposition. And especially in light of this ridiculous thing where he's like, put your house in order before you criticize anyone else. Like, and okay, maybe every person that has just started studying politics doesn't have the answer to every problem in the world, but it's like, oh, don't even contribute to any sort of attempt to change anything unless your life is perfect. When his life is far from perfect, he was a friggin' drug addict, and he even won't even take responsibility for it. He's just like, oh, I had no idea benzodiazepines were addictive, even though he's a psychologist. And it's just like, give me a break, man. But like, I don't think we're getting a break from Jordan Peterson. He is going to continue to get more simps because, well, I don't know. People like power and they want to be more powerful, and he promises them they can be more powerful without having to take responsibility for that power if they just, follow his 12 simple steps, which is just like ironic considering his whole thing is like, if you take personal responsibility, but it basically boils down to, if you take personal responsibility, you can become more powerful, and then you can be irresponsible with that power as long as you figure out how to get more power. So I don't really like him very much, no. Not that everything he says is false, but, well, I do not like him, Sam I am. I do not like him in a house. I do not like him with a mouse.